Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us today. Let me introduce quickly who we have with us. Starting at my left, Commissioner Joan McDonald, who is the Department of Transportation Commissioner. John Melville, who is the Acting Commissioner of the New York State Department of Homeland Services. Tom Prendergast, who is the Chairman and CEO, two titles, of the Metropolitan Transportation Agency. Jim Malatras to my right, State Director of Operations. Patrick Foy, Executive Director of the Port Authority, and Joseph D'Amico, Superintendent, New York State Police. I am sure everyone who can hear my voice knows that we are looking at an impending snowstorm. Mother Nature has decided once again to come visit us in an extreme way. And you've heard the predictions, and the National Weather Service and our own information has confirmed that this is going to be a blizzard. It is a serious blizzard. It should not be taken lightly, and it could affect health and safety. The blizzard brings with it very high winds, gusts up to 55 miles per hour, and that's what makes the situation dangerous and difficult from our point of view. It's the snow combined with the wind. It affects visibility, snow drifts. This is supposed to be a very light snow. So they will be dangerous and difficult conditions, difficult to clear, difficult for the plows, etc. We've been preparing for it over the past 3 days or so. We have deployed assets from across the state to the New York City metropolitan area. We're focusing Rockland, Westchester, New York City, Nassau, and Suffolk. We have 750 plows from across the state that are coming down. Ironically, a few weeks ago, we had 7 feet of snow in Buffalo. 7 feet of snow. And we had to do the reverse. We had to ask all the plows in downstate New York to go up to Buffalo. So now we're asking the reverse, and the upstate plow operators are coming down, quote unquote, downstate to help. 50,000 pounds of salt. We have several hundred National Guard who have been called out and will be stationed in New York City and Long Island area primarily. Few measures that we are going to put into effect. Number one, I'm declaring a state of emergency effective immediately from Sullivan, Ulster counties south, Rockland, Westchester, New York City, and Long Island. Declaration of a state of emergency allows me to waive certain laws and certain regulations, so it actually allows the government to move faster. State employees who are non-essential will be released at 3 p.m. The New York City subway system will continue to run until 7 to 8 o'clock on the usual schedule. At that point, there will be limited service on the subway system. So as we've been saying for the past few days, you should plan to leave work early or wherever you are to try to get home on the early side, because 7, 8 o'clock, the expression is they want to start to put the trains away. They want to put the subway cars in a place where they're not going to be hurt by the snow, so they'll be available quickly. To protect the subway cars, we have to close down the subway system earlier. Metro North, Long Island Railroad, will have early service, and we are anticipating at this time closing the Metro North and LIRR service at 11 p.m. That is the current plan. We will confirm these after the 4 o'clock weather advisory. But if nothing changes, we plan to stop service at Metro North and the LIRR at 11 o'clock for the same reason, so the trains can be put in a place that is safe from the weather. The path will operate on the usual schedule. At 9 o'clock, the path will go on weekend schedule. So a reduced time frame currently set for 9 o'clock. We will have a tractor trailer ban on the main state roads 84, 287, throughway south of exit 17. That will go into effect at 4 o'clock. Tractor trailer ban on those roads. We are considering at this time a travel ban on all main roads starting at 11 o'clock tonight. Again, to be confirmed after the 4 o'clock weather advisory when we have the most updated weather. The closing of the roads is a safety precaution. It's never an easy decision. You close the roads, people can't travel. Some people find it an inconvenience. If you leave the roads open, people can get stuck on the roads. We've had some potentially dangerous situations where people have gotten stuck on the roads during the course of a storm. We haven't had any tragedies, but very close to it. So this is not a storm to take lightly, and we're taking what we believe are prudent measures. The times I gave you today, again, are based on the information we have at this time. As you know from the weather reports, they change from time to time. 4 o'clock, we'll get the most recent update, and then we'll confirm or adjust these times at that time, about 4:15, 4:30, right after we get the 4 o'clock broadcast. With that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Governor, at what point after 4 p.m. do you think you might actually shut down completely the subways, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and that?
Well, the subways we're talking about operating until 7, 8 o'clock. I'll ask Chairman Prendergast if he wants to expand on that. At that point, have a limited service, but again, depending on what we hear at 4 o'clock, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, 11 o'clock at this point, closing the system down to protect the trains. But Tom, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, Governor. We're going to put a Plan 5 in effect, which occurs when we have a storm of this magnitude. So as the end of the rush hour occurs, we lay the fleet up underground overnight, primarily on express tracks, and that limits our ability to run the full complement of service. That's what the Governor's talking about. Service starts to get reduced. So there will be service out there, especially in the underground portions. We've changed our buses and our vehicles so they could make sure they can accommodate the snow accumulations that may occur on the street. And in terms of the commuter rail, we're exposed outdoors, telling people that travel after 11 o'clock, we need to protect that equipment, be treacherous, and they should be home at that time.
Governor Malloy has issued a travel ban on all roads after 9 p.m. So if folks are on a Metro North that gets them to Connecticut after that time, they have to then drive their car to get home. How does that work with their synchronization with the other ends of the railroads at this point?
Well, other ends of the railroad, yes. Your point is other states. Obviously, every state makes their own decision, and different states are anticipating different levels of the storm. Connecticut is supposed to be very badly hit. And Connecticut, for us, is comparable to Long Island and really the eastern tip of Long Island. So Connecticut has put a travel ban on all roads in effect at roughly 9 o'clock. We are considering, as I mentioned, a total travel ban at 11 p.m., depending on the 4 o'clock weather advisory. But in terms of Connecticut's decision, they are going to get hit worse than we are, theoretically, and therefore they're closing their roads earlier.
What I'm getting at, Tom, have you considered shutting down Metro North so you don't
The reason I messaged it the way I did, which is they should be off the system, they need to also accommodate whatever travel time from their ending point on our system. And if in the case of Connecticut customers who would be riding the Harlem line, they need to factor that into the equation. So they need to be home by 9 o'clock in that case and on our system much earlier.
Have we had a closure like this for snow? We did for Sandy, clearly, but at least in recent memory, have we had a closure this thorough?
We have had, well, who's we? In the state of New York, yes, we have had closures of roads because of snowstorms. We've
Mass transit system around.
Besides Sandy, we have taken precautions in snowstorms. I don't believe we've closed the system in a snowstorm. Do you recall?
Not a total closure. We've had line closures in a storm in 1996 where we had to close lines because they were impassable, but a total system closure, no.
And part of the closure rationale is to make sure you don't damage the trains so they can get back up to service as quickly as possible after the storm.
If there is limited service, if you decide that tonight, how long does it take to resume regular service, given the conditions?
Once the weather clears up, this will allow us to resume regular service as soon as the weather clears up because the trains will have been protected.
But do you think, given that the blizzard is going to go well into tomorrow, that's not going to happen?
Well, obviously, if the blizzard, as predicted, is ferocious tomorrow, then we would stay on limited service or closed, whatever the case may be.
This is for Tom Pendergrass. So the limited service after 7 or 8, is that everything goes to local and there's just no express? Can you just, for the subways I'm talking about?
The place we lay the equipment up are the express tracks, and as those tracks become fouled and you can't run trains on them, the system starts to shrink in size. So by the end of when you're laying up all the equipment, you've used all the express tracks up. But that's well into the evening. That's between 8 and 10 o'clock at night.
So you'll be able to ride the subway, you just won't be able to get an express track tonight? Is that basically?
That's correct, but depends on where you're starting from and where you're going to. The outside elements of the system, the open cut portions, the elevated structures, they're more at risk to be able to run in heavy snowfall and blizzard conditions.
What are the chances that you might actually close down the whole subway system?
Well, we'll see what the weather forecast is at 4 o'clock. If it's worse than we've heard thus far, we may take more dramatic action, but we won't know until 4 o'clock.
Well, sorry, excuse me. Obviously, we're talking so much about New York City, the subways and all this kind of thing. So can you talk a bit about what seems to be a lack of coordination between the state and the city? I mean, you and the mayor had any kind of initial times for when these operations were going to happen. So what's going on there in terms of?
We have been totally coordinated. Our staffs are talking. I talk to the mayor all the time. So we are totally coordinated. We obviously have different jurisdictions. This is a storm that affects from Sullivan, Ulster, Long Island. I'll be going out there. And we have different responsibilities. We're responsible for the MTA, et cetera. But we're in total coordination. In terms of coordinating times that we talk to the press, you know, sometimes there's a level of coordination you can't reach.
What about the closure of the Long Island Expressway, Jen? When is that going to happen?
We are anticipating, first there'll be a close down for trucks, tractor trailer trucks at 4 p.m. We are anticipating a potential closing the roads down, meaning only emergency personnel at 11 o'clock this evening will confirm after the 4 o'clock weather advisory, at which point we would put a travel ban into effect, which is what the state of Connecticut has put into effect for 9 o'clock. Again, we think Connecticut's weather is forecasted to be worse than ours, and that's the differential between the 9 and the 11 o'clock bands.
Governor, what about eastern Long Island? They're going to be very hard hit. They more often than not lose power. Are there contingency plans for that? Is the power authority doing anything out there?
We have been in contact with all the utility companies. PSE&G is the utility company on Long Island now. I'll be going out this afternoon. You're exactly right. The storms that tend to come up the coast tend to hit the eastern part of Long Island, Suffolk, harder than the New York City, Westchester area, and that's what they're forecasting here. That's why Connecticut is really bracing for a hard hit, and the eastern part of Long Island. And we're talking to the utility companies and making all the preparations we can. What happens on Long Island is you have overhead wires and many trees on Long Island, and the trees get heavy from the snow, and the wind blows, and a branch breaks, and it hits the wire, and the wire is down, and the power is out. During Hurricane Sandy, this went on for weeks and weeks. So we've made a lot of changes to the system, improvements, mechanical improvements, etc. But Mother Nature is still Mother Nature, and if there's significant damage to the system, then people should expect to be without power for a period of time. You cannot perfect the electric system on Long Island where there will not be damage during a significant storm. You know, we're nowhere near that point.
Governor, you mentioned 7 feet of snow up in Buffalo. Portions of New York routinely get 7 feet of snow. Why do you think a foot or 2 feet has such an impact here?
It's all relative. 7 feet of snow, you get the attention of the people in Buffalo. 2 feet of snow, you don't. So, you know, it's 7 feet was it was really incredible to see 7 feet. That was 7 feet without any drifts, right? So that is just 7 feet. You would see the entire front of a house, above the front door, above the garage door, was all snow.
Do you think they're tougher up in Buffalo?
I'm not getting into that, but they do know there's snow up in Buffalo. That I can tell you. So it's relative. It's what you become accustomed to. It's what you're equipped for. They have their snow removal operation in Buffalo is really extraordinary. But you know, there is something, and I've said this in this room many times. I've only been governor in 4 years. I believe I've gone through more emergency disasters in 4 years than any governor in history has gone through. There is a pattern of extreme weather that we have never seen before. Buffalo sees snow. Buffalo had never seen 7 feet of snow before. So you're getting a repeat pattern of these extreme weather situations, whether it's Hurricane Sandy or 7 feet of snow, and that's part of the changing climate, I believe, that has brought this new extreme weather pattern. And it's something we have to adjust to. It's something that's very costly. It's also something that is very dangerous. And, you know, New Yorkers, we're tough, and it doesn't matter, you should stay home. You know, this is nothing to take lightly. We have had situations where people have gotten stuck on roads and snowed in and been in their cars for 12, 18, 24 hours. And we have been very lucky that we have never lost anyone in a situation like this. But it could be a matter of life and death, and that's not being overly dramatic. So caution is required. On all of these situations, what we're saying and what we have been saying, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock tonight, you want to be home and you want to stay home. When we're talking about closing the subway, Long Island Railroad, closing roads, we've been talking about it for 2 or 3 days. This is not an evening or a night to be out and about.
Tom or for the governor, if you're working today in a hospital, you have an essential job, you take the subway home at midnight, what is your confidence level that that's an underground line, an E-train, for example, that at midnight tonight you can take that train home?
On an underground line, confidence level is very high, so they should be able to. But if they have to exit the system and traverse to go beyond the system, they have to factor that into the equation.
And look, we're also asking for help. When we say we want people off the roads, off the subways and the railroad, it's because people need to do their job to protect the system. If we get the subway cars put away, if we get the railroad cars put away, then it'll be easier to get the system up and running. If we get the cars off the roads, we can plow the roads. What happens on the roads is you get a couple of cars stuck, or you have one jackknife tractor trailer. That stops everything. Now you can't clear the road and the snow piles up. So it aggravates and it builds on itself.
And this is for Chairman Prendergast, on the open air stations, the open cut stations, what's being done there to ensure that things don't get too piled up?
Well, if you're familiar with our plans, we run de-icer trains. So as soon as the snow starts falling, we're putting de-icer trains out to keep the third rail clear and make sure the contact shoes could get their electrical power. We have trains, other trains with snow throwers on them positioned in strategic places throughout the system. We've got the largest number of open cuts out in Brooklyn, but we've got the Dyer Avenue line up in the Bronx. And we've got other locations in the system that will be using those snow throwers. And so as the governor said, as travel diminishes and we bring trains in and lay them up, we can focus all of our efforts at snow fighting and make sure we're as ready as possible for the Wednesday morning commute, Tuesday morning commute.
The bus service is going to be affected for sure. What's your decision-making process as the snow comes down and roads are?
We saw a higher number of people coming in earlier. We hope they also self-select to go home earlier. So the buses that have the highest exposure to getting stuck are the articulated buses, so we'll chain those. But if demand is down, we'll bring those buses in and run what we call the 40-footers, the shorts. And then as demand continues to lower, we'll bring those buses into the depots and keep them safe.
Governor Cuomo, can I touch on Shelley Silver? Can you just sit down?
Yeah. Can we just finish? Anything else on the weather?
Are any anti-gouging measures going into effect for gas, for Uber, for anything at all?
Uber gouging. That's a new concept I haven't heard of before in this situation. Not that we have heard of. It's a good question, but not that we have heard of at this time.
How about gas supply?
Gas supply at this time is fine.
What about, Governor, you had spoken about PSE&G and sort of the complication of having overhead wires, but I know your frustration with LIPA was that it took forever for them to get the lights back on. Is there any way to sort of hold their feet to the fire to make sure people get power back in an expeditious way?
Well, we're working with them, number one, in a cooperative way, where there are wires down, who can help get to that spot and who can help fix the wire as fast as possible. And then this is part of the regulation that they're under. Part of what a utility company has to do is be able to respond to a storm situation like this, and if they don't do it well, then that's a violation of their regulatory agreement.
What about the airports, as for Pat and for the governor, any chance that, we know there's flight delays, any chance that an airport could actually get shut down?
Mr. Foy?
Closed, I mean.
Yeah, look, there are extensive cancellations today. About 70% of the flights at LaGuardia have already been canceled. I expect that percentage to go up. At JFK, nearly 50%, about 50% of the flights have been canceled. Expect that number to go up as well. Tomorrow, there will be very extensive cancellations at actually all area airports. JFK and LaGuardia will continue to be open for emergency flight operations, but we would advise travelers today and tomorrow and any time there's weather like this to call ahead to carriers. But the answer is extensive cancellations and extensive delays when the airlines are bringing operations back into service.
Mr. Prendergast, is there any point where even the underground subways will be completely shut down?
I don't believe so, because there'd be no reason for us. We'd be able to run trains. And it is the essential part of transportation for people who must get around, including our own employees.
So the encouragement is to tell everybody try to be home by 11 o'clock, but, you know, if necessary, you will have people have to know that there's an underground train route, basically.
I think the governor stated it very well. This is an extremely serious storm. If you can be home, take care of yourself, and not expose yourself to the elements, because it's more than just riding our system, it's being out and about. And tomorrow will be an extremely difficult day, especially if we get 24 to 36 inches of snow. It'll be everybody focused on trying to get the system back up and running.
Also, what we're saying, just so we're clear, we were given firm times at 4 o'clock, which is when the last relevant weather report comes in. But at 4 o'clock, we may very well say the roads are going to be closed at 11 o'clock. We're going to limited service on the subway, limited service on the railroad, as you heard. So people should definitely plan now on expediting their travel plans and getting home as early as possible.
I wonder, Mr. Farr, could you just clarify at the airports, you referred to the airlines making cancellations and passengers checking that, but in terms of what the PA does, the PA isn't closing anything or reducing staff at anything?
No, as a matter of fact, we're increasing staff. We're having staff sleep over, as are TSA, CBP, et cetera, so that when the airport is ready to open to commercial flights, we're ready to do that as quickly as possible. That's standard operating procedure. But for travelers, there are extensive cancellations today, and there will be very, very extensive cancellations tomorrow. The airports, however, will continue to be open to receive emergency flight operations, and the crews at JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark Airport will do what they do, which is to get the airports open as quickly as possible, quickly and safely as possible.
Okay? We try to give people early notice of these situations. We understand people have schedules, people have plans, be they work plans, family plans. So we try to give them as much notice as possible. But we also need people to really take the notice seriously. And it's early in the afternoon now, and we wanted to get them this information as early as possible. We'll confirm it at 4 o'clock. I don't believe there's going to be a change at 4 o'clock. So assume that your schedule is going to need to be expedited this evening, or you could have very long delays, or you could have a real problem. Getting stuck on a road is a real problem, and it's a real possibility tonight and tomorrow. Okay, any questions off topic? Yes.
Can you say what if you show us over, she said, John, who is power sharing?
I think, I only know what I've read in the newspaper, but I think it's a terribly unfortunate situation for himself. I think it's frankly a terrible situation for government writ large. It's another negative. It's another reason why people are cynical about the system and skeptical about the system. So we're trying to build trust in the system, and this is a negative that just brings up all the worst stereotypes of government. So I think it's very unfortunate. In terms of the Speaker's decision to allow step aside or step down, I don't know what the details actually are. From my point of view, the government functioning is very important. We have to pass laws, we have to pass budgets. You take something like today, this requires a lot of coordination, it requires funding. The government has to work. And the distraction of what's going on with the Speaker, it hurts the functioning of government. So to the extent there's going to be a replacement that will run the Assembly, I think that's a good thing, because from my point of view, my job is to get things done and to get the government working. And the Assembly is an important part of that. I have...
To have 5 people doing it, would it be better if Shelley just totally stepped aside?
Yeah,
Instead of letting these 5 people do it?
Well, first, the Assembly, the legislature, is a different branch of government, and the governor runs the executive, so I'm not going to tell them how to run the Assembly. To the extent I have to interact with the Assembly, committees, management by committee, I've never been a fan of, and I've never seen it work well. So I'd like to see what the actual configuration is that they come up with, when they come up with it, and then I'll have an opinion.
How do you anticipate that this new arrangement, this committee arrangement, will impact budget negotiations, which are obviously starting to get underway soon in Albany?
Well, that's the question. That's the functioning of government. What does the government have to do? One of the things is we have to negotiate a budget. I laid out a state of the state that probably had 70 proposals. How do we reform education? How do we bring broadband to people across the state? How do we do a tax cut? This is all important information, and these are all real-life decisions that make a difference in people's lives, you know. You're talking about their health care, you're talking about their security. So that the government works matters. Look at today. If government doesn't work, it can literally be a matter of life and death. So I'm focused on the functionality of government, and I want to know what the mechanism is that will replace the speaker. And as I said, all I know is what I've read and the quote-unquote committee. I don't know what that means. I can't negotiate with a committee, so I have to see what they actually come up with.
So would you rather see a single person then be appointed to take Mr. Silver's place, or
Yeah,
from the committee?
it's not really my place to tell them how to run their business. From my own selfish point of view, I don't understand how you negotiate with a committee, how I negotiate with a committee.
All right, guys, Governor, the last question, does this whole situation make you think or lead to any kind of change in how you feel about the shutting down of the law enforcement to begin with? And whether it should have been expanded too early or too early?
No, I don't think so. If anything, you look at the laws that we've actually passed over the years, which have brought more disclosure than ever before, and more disclosure for legislators of outside income, which is what this is really about. I think that those laws actually were the genesis of bringing this situation to light. So the more transparency, the better. Okay, thank you very much.